Good morning. Oh, wait. Nah, it should be. Right. Yeah, that's good. Good morning, chat. My last two videos got no views, bro. Like, I don't know what happened. I might have gotten shadow banned or something. It's weird. Not to mention, I've seen like 2 views in the past 2 days, which is unusual. I want to talk about sexual deviance, the acceptance of many forms of sexuality in modern society and psychiatry. What the I don't know if psychiatrical is a word, but the psychological implications of sexual deviancy and these multiple forms of sexuality. So, in culture, we've seen a turn away from classifying sexual deviance as a mental illness, right? So I just want to reflect on that, see some thoughts about it, because in the modern day, a lot of people identify as some sexuality some sexuality different from heterosexual, right? So in the 70s, when they changed homosexuality from being a mental illness to not, we can see in the board of psychiatrists at the APA a lot of disagreement over this. So pretty much Dr. X, who was a homosexual on this board, right? He was anonymous. In one of the meetings in 72, I believe, had a huge social backing and pretty much said, guys, let's stop classifying this as a mental illness. And all of society was like, yes, we should. Not all of society, but a lot of liberal society, right? Because you see the societal shift in the 70s during Vietnam. So I have the document pulled up here. So I'm going to be talking today from an article. It's a medical paper called "The Turbulent Evolution of Homosexuality: From Mental Illness to Sexual Preference." So pretty much we see the big shift, and it's mostly a religious thing actually, because we switched from religion to science, right? So many sins became classified as illnesses, right? Demonic possession became insanity, drunkenness became alcoholism, and sodomy became homosexuality. Drescher, 2012, page 124. Right? And then a bit later it says, insanity was still seen as an illness of intellect, but from the 1860s, psychiatrists developed a new definition. Insanity included all diseases of emotions and of the will, and thus sexual deviance could become a mental disorder, right? So that's the initial basis of it. So in psychology, what defines a mental illness, right? I guess this is more in psychiatry. Well, there's 3 things to it. Deviance, so you deviate from the norm, right? Dysfunction, so you become dysfunctional in your life, right? Like something begins to dysfunction one way or another. And then the last one is distress, so it causes some form of distress, emotional impairment to the person, right? So, for example, anxiety will cause you, let's say you have social anxiety, right? You have, what's the word? What is it? Somnophobia? Is that what it is? I don't know if that's actually right. But, no, let's say you have agoraphobia, right? So that's a phobia of being in public spaces with a lot of people around. That's deviance from the norm. It's causing distress in the person, and it's very likely to lead them to be dysfunctional, right? So they're around a lot of people, they feel weird, they can't do it, right? They can't function like a normal person. That's a mental illness. Schizophrenia obviously causes a deviation from the norm. In addition to this, they're very distressed often, and they could barely function in normal life, right? Mental illness. So when you look at sexual preferences as they're seen in the modern day, could this be a mental illness? Well, if we're being honest, yes is the answer. On the board of psychiatrists, a large sum of them were very against the change, actually. Very against the change. Cotton and writings asserted that at its heart of the DSM, it's a political document, a social construction, shaped more by sociocultural influences than the demands of practicing professionals in the field of mental health. Almost all the psychiatrists were against this change, actually, because, I mean, they're psychiatrists. They're not social workers, right? So, like, they're not about making things the easiest for people, not about making society the nicest. They're more so just trying to evaluate mental illness. Now, if you're asking me, what do I think? Well, I think it could be categorized as a mental illness for sure. But, like, what is that helping, you know? I don't think that categorizing much as a mental illness really helps much at all. I don't think it changes much. But, I don't know, like, having sexualities and stuff like that labeled as a mental illness, it's not really helping anyone, you know? It just kind of gives the average person more reason to be against the whatever group we're saying are mentally ill, right? So it's a big problem. But like I was talking about in my other video about capitalism and schizophrenia, that one book, I honestly think that having anything labeled as mental illness is kind of problematic besides like schizophrenia or sociopathy. Really, like, I don't think that giving anyone labels like that is really going to help improve their lives at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's 10 times better to just be like, we're all people, you know? And yeah, you might not be like me, right? But regardless, I just have to figure out a way to function normally or find a way to function that suits me, right? Just like you. Because everyone experiences that, is the thing. Whether you're severely anxious or depressed or you have nothing like that, either of us both have to find ways that we can live life where we can succeed and operate normally. So, what's the danger of removing the label of homosexuality as a mental illness, right? There's a lot of benefits to it, for sure. What's the danger? Well, a lot of psychiatrists talked about how they're worried that the same could happen to pedophilia years down the line, right? And this I can actually agree with, because pedophilia is still, I think it's the only sexual preference that's considered a mental illness, you know? And whether pedophiles are at fault or not for feeling that way, I could not say, to be honest. You know, it's like, that's horrible that they're like that. But are they at fault? I don't know, right? Just like, I mean, if you think pedophiles are at fault for liking children, how could you say that gay people aren't at fault, you know? Because I don't think that gay people choose to be gay. So therefore, do pedophiles choose to like children? I don't think so. It doesn't mean that it's fine, right? That's horrible. That's disgusting. But like, I don't know. I don't think that you could have one without the other. The only difference is that pedophilia is overtly bad and homosexuality is like so-so. You know, it for sure causes problems in the person's life to be gay, right? And that's why you see the huge uptick in gay people being depressed and anxious and stuff and wanting to kill themselves. But I think that the difference is that pedophilia is overtly harming a child versus just the person that's experiencing it, right? But in the future, could they declassify pedophilia as a mental illness and just make it a preference? It's possible, for sure. I mean, based off precedent, it would make sense that they could do that, you know? But I'd really hope that they wouldn't, because that would kind of normalize it. I mean, it normalized being gay when they removed it as a mental illness, you know? So, I don't know. In conclusion, being gay isn't the fault of the person. Is it a mental illness? By definition, yes. By the APA standard, yes, it would be, but it causes too many problems to classify it as that, right? IMO, in my opinion, I don't know why I said that. We shouldn't really have much stuff labeled as mental illness at all, right? Like, to even say that ADD or ADHD are mental illnesses, you know how, like, in my videos sometimes I'm like, yeah, I have ADHD, if that's even real, you know? And I talked about in, I would believe, my last video or a few videos ago, that one time someone told me, I don't know if ADHD is truly a mental illness or if those people are just wired to be hunters. You know, they're not really able to focus on reading and academia as much as they are like the go type stuff. You know, they're wired with all that energy. And I actually agree with that. And like I talked about in the other video, the Kanye thing where he's like, my Maslow's hierarchy of needs is different than yours, right? We can do the same thing and feel different ways about it. And that's because God made me this way. I actually agree with that a lot. Like, I seriously think that not a lot is genuine mental illness that's inescapable. I think it's more so that, like, you're just wired to live differently than the average person, right? Which, the truth is that the average person is wired differently from the average person. You know, like, everyone's completely different in what they need to do to feel good, to feel successful, to feel accepted, right? So, like, can you really do these broad scale classifications? Like, if your brain is wired to be a farmer and then we force you to go work at McDonald's and be in a public high school, yeah, you're probably going to feel depressed, right? Like, I think that's understandable, honestly. Like, when you're in a society that demands that you sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day, demands you go work this shitty job that you hate, you know, because, like, what else are you going to do? Demands you tolerate all these people, deal with all this stuff. Is it that abnormal to feel that way? I don't know. Especially, like I talked about in my other video, too, where 50% of women are going to be on antidepressants by, 2025, 2030, I don't remember. It's like, is that even a mental illness at that point? If half the population is treating themselves to be like that. I don't know. It's tough to say, right? So, yeah, I don't believe in mental illness, really. Excluding, like, schizophrenia and sociopathy, right? Because those are genuinely, like, massive changes to your brain, right? Like, is a personality disorder really a personality disorder? Or is it just your personality? You know what I'm saying? I don't know, but we're kind of fed this idea. And so a lot of people just buy into it, which sucks, you know? Because, like, when I was younger and they're like, bro, you're going to be depressed for the rest of your life and shit. I was like 14 or whatever. It made it a lot worse. Because I was like, fuck, bro. Like, this is just how I'm going to be. Like, damn. I felt very hopeless at that time. And, bro, I'm not like that anymore. Like, what the fuck? I can't believe I bought that shit. But, like, I don't know, guys. I don't think that it's helping much to have this concept in society. Especially in this society. Go to, like, because here's the other part of it, too. Mental illness is a highly characteristic of the first world, right? People in second, third world countries don't really talk about it much. It's not as prevalent of an issue to them, you know? And I think it's just because there's not as many norms for them to be shoved into. When you force people into the norm, some of them are going to deviate, right? Some of them are going to not be functional. And to be like, well, this is because you have a chemical imbalance. I don't know how much I buy it. Alright, guys. That pretty much wraps up this video. Check out the document if you want. It's actually very interesting. I used it for my research write-up for my psych class. My teacher's like, research one thing. I was like, bet. But it really is. I mean, what they said about the DSM being a political document is extremely true. That's like one of the most insightful things I've heard about the DSM from one of the people on the board, honestly. Because it varies so much year to year and shit, you know? there's so many things that we are changing, and they don't change because we've evolved psychiatry. They change because social implications, you know? It's a very real thing. But anyways, guys, that's it. Have a good day. God bless.